Tom Kha Gai or coconut chicken soup is one of my absolute favorite things to order when I go out for Thai food, and it is shockingly easy to make. Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. And today's recipe is for a really simple soup, and we're gonna use the pressure cooker. I'm using the 6.5 quart Ninja Foodi, but any pressure cooker that you have will work just fine. And don't be overwhelmed by all these ingredients, okay? Because I know there's a lot going on here, but they're really pretty basic, except for a few that may be a little bit harder to find. And I've got substitutions, and some of them you can just omit altogether. So let me go ahead and start building the soup because there is absolutely nothing to saute. There's hardly any prep involved in this, which I love. We just sort of dump everything in and then go under pressure. First thing I'm gonna add is 4 cups of chicken stock or chicken broth. Now, if you wanted to make a vegetarian version, you could absolutely do that and use vegetable stock and then change a few of the other ingredients. And of course, it wouldn't be chicken soup. Then you'd wanna add in more mushrooms or more veggies. Now, the next thing I'm gonna add in are dried kaffir lime leaves. I can't find these fresh or frozen anywhere, but I was able to find them in a bag at an Asian market in Nashville. So you can absolutely order these on Amazon. Just get dried kaffir lime leaves and you're good to go. Or if you're lucky enough to live somewhere where they have a Thai grocer, they're gonna have them either fresh or frozen for you. I usually add 5 to 6 depending on their size, and that would be the same whether they're dry, fresh, or frozen. Some of them are little, some of them are big. So really I just add in a nice little handful, okay? And that's the first thing I'm gonna add into the soup. Now, if you can't find them, omit them. It's okay. I've made the soup and I forgot them, even though I had them, and it turned out delicious too, okay? So it's perfectly fine to omit that. Now, the next thing I'm gonna add in is chili garlic sauce. Now, this is spicy, okay? So use your judgment. You can omit it altogether if you want to. Usually I can find this right in Walmart, so it's easy to find. I start off with 2 teaspoons of it right into the soup. A tablespoon will probably give you a heat level, I would say, of about 6 or 7 if you also add in the chili peppers. So use your judgment, okay? I also add in either fresh or dried Thai chili peppers, okay? So these are some that I got fresh because I just happened to go to the Asian market. And these I have dehydrated because I buy a bunch of them and then I dehydrate them and I use them in soups and other things all throughout the year. When I'm using them fresh or even dried, cut the tips off and just throw them right in. You can use 2, 3, 4, it's up to you. They are hot. I don't usually actually eat them though, okay? So I take them out of the soup before I eat them because they can be very hot. If you want to use a dried, you can just simply break it. If you want less heat, dump your seeds out, throw it in your pot. Okay, perfectly fine. I'm not going to talk about the mini peppers because they're going to go in after we pressure cook because they're just an addition that I like to add in. All right, let's get to this crazy looking thing. It sort of looks like ginger, but it is not. It is galangal, and it can be difficult to find, okay? I found it in the Asian grocer. If you do find it, you can buy it. You can like trim it up a little bit. You don't even have to peel it, and you can slice it up, chunk it up, and put it in the freezer, and it'll last a long time. What I usually do, because I love this soup so much, is I make little packets. This is like a Tom Kha Gai packet for me. It's got 1 large lemongrass, and it's got 4 little chunks of the galangal right in there. So I can just open this up, throw it in, and I've got my 2 ingredients that make Tom Kha Gai Tom Kha Gai. This is one of them. In fact, Tom Kha Gai is, the Kha is for the galangal, so there's really no substitution for it. It does not taste or smell like ginger, okay? So what I like to do when I have a big piece like this is to start to trim it up a little bit. And it is tough, okay? It is gonna be tougher than ginger for sure. Take off about 4 inches of it, and you need a good knife for this because it is. In fact, I'm gonna get a bigger knife. And then I'll just cut off this little end. Sometimes I trim it up, sometimes I peel it. You don't really have to though. The skin is pretty thin, so you really don't have to peel it. It smells fresh and piney almost, okay? So it is not like ginger at all. Ginger's spicy. This is not. You can put ginger in your soup, that's fine. It'll just taste a little bit different, or you can omit this altogether, which is why I'm calling it a coconut chicken soup, because I want you to be able to make this with the ingredients that are accessible to you. So don't get hung up on the name and think you have to go source this out. You don't. It does add a nice flavor, but I've made it without it, and it is still delicious. All right, let me go ahead and I'm gonna go and peel this up just a little bit here. Now you don't eat this again, okay? So it's not like you really have to even peel it, okay? Just sort of one of those obsession things. Some people will slice them thinly like that, okay? And throw them into their soup. That's fine. I'm sure that works. It probably infuses more flavor, but they're harder to pick out. And again, they're hard. You're not gonna wanna bite into them. So I don't do that. I chunk them up so they're in bigger pieces, so that I can find them easy in the soup and then dump those in. There's also another preparation of galangal that I just found, and it's dried. I have not used this yet, but if you find it and you want to try it, I think it would be perfectly fine. They're kind of like sliced up, so I would add about 4 slices to your soup before pressure cooking. Now let's talk about the lemongrass. I do think this is a very important ingredient in this soup. I don't suggest skipping it, okay? But there are alternatives. Lemongrass is not hard to find, but it may not look like this when you see it in the stores. A lot of times it will come in the produce section in a little container that will just have 3 or 4 stalks that look like this. You can grab them. And you can freeze them. So if you only need 1 or 2 for your soup and there's 4, you can take these and put them in a bag and freeze them for later. So this is what it looks like after you kind of prepare it. This is what it looks like if you get it from the Asian grocer. And it's super easy to take care of here. We're just gonna take this top off. And I like to cut about 2 to 3 inches from the stem. I don't even know if that's the stem, but that's what I'm gonna call it today. And then you just peel it. Peel off 1 to 2 layers until you get down to nice, clean, shiny lemongrass. Cut it in half. And then just before you add it to your soup, you could do 1 or 2 things. Sometimes I'll just take a piece like this and I'll just kind of break it, but not all the way, because again, this comes out of the soup. We don't eat this, it's for flavor, okay? It's an aromatic. Or you can take something like a meat pounder, tenderizer, and just sort of pound it. This is gonna release all the flavors of the lemongrass so that it infuses into your soup. And let me tell you, it's amazing. All right, so if you can't find that at the grocery store though, they do have something called lemongrass paste. And this is also usually found in the produce aisle in the refrigerated section. Mine needs to be thrown away so it's darker. It's just been in the refrigerator too long. Usually it's a much lighter color. You can substitute 1 tablespoon of this into your soup. I am working on making some lemongrass paste with my lemongrass, but I haven't gotten that quite down yet. So I have to make a batch of soup with it, but hopefully that'll be in my written recipe. All right, so we're gonna add in 2 of the lemongrass stalks, which I just did. Then I'll put these in my little bag. And I leave some in the refrigerator. They'll last, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks or so in the refrigerator, but any longer than that, you're gonna want to freeze them for sure, okay? And they freeze beautifully. So freeze them in 1 or 2 stalk little baggies and you'll be good to go. The next thing we're adding in is going to be something that people may or may not have heard of, may or may not think they're going to like, but it's important. Let me tell you, that is fish sauce. Okay, it smells terrible. Ugh, bad. I almost didn't use it when I first found out that it was used to deepen flavors in Thai food. And I had a very flat soup. It wasn't making this soup, it was a different soup, but it was very flat. And I thought, all right, let me go buy it. Let me add it in. Wow, it's amazing, the difference. 2 tablespoons. Don't skip it unless you are a vegetarian and you're gonna need to skip that then. I think there's something else you can use in place of it. You can look that up on Google. All right, so it comes in a little bottle like this. You store it in the refrigerator, and 2 tablespoons is what I use. Feel free though, you could use 1 tablespoon and then see what it tastes like. And if it needs a little bit more depth of flavor, then go ahead and add in another half to a whole tablespoon. It's totally up to you. Okay, next, I put carrots in. That's another one of my little twists. I'm gonna get to that in a little bit along with the peppers. But let's talk about the mushrooms. Mushrooms, I think, are pretty key in this soup, and it's really delicious. And if you're gonna do a vegetarian version and omit the chicken, you're gonna wanna bump up the mushrooms quite a bit because they give that nice, hearty feeling to the soup. What I have is a combination of shiitake and baby bellas. That's what I like. You can use any type of mushrooms that you want in your soup. It's perfectly fine. And what I like to do is sort of just slice them. They've been cleaned, and I just sort of slice them up and throw them right in the soup, just like that. Okay, that is 8 ounces of mushrooms. I used 4 ounces of the baby bella, 4 ounces of the shiitake. You could also use dried mushrooms in this recipe, but you're going to want to soak them in hot water before you put them into the soup. Our pressure cook time is very short. It's not going to hydrate the mushrooms all the way. You'll end up with chewy mushrooms, but you can do that. What you want to do is hydrate however many mushrooms you want to hydrate and then weigh them out. And a good ratio for the soup is 8 ounces of mushrooms. But you know, if you love mushrooms, you can add more. If you don't like them that much, add less or omit them altogether. It's fine. It's your soup, okay? I want you to be extremely happy with your soup. The chicken I'm using for this coconut chicken soup is 1.5 pounds of boneless, skinless chicken breast. You can absolutely use boneless, skinless chicken thighs as well, okay? Whatever you want. I have these trimmed up a little bit, and then what I do is I take a sharp knife and I slice the chicken sort of thinly on the diagonal, just like that. So the chicken is about 1/4 of an inch thick. If you are having trouble getting it that thin, you can always freeze your chicken breast for about 30 minutes on a parchment lined tray, and that partially frozen chicken will slice a little bit easier for you. The other thing that I do sometimes is I have my chicken in little vacuum sealed bags, and I'll bring it out the night before I want to make the soup, put it in the refrigerator. Usually by the next day when I'm ready to make the soup, it's partially thawed and pretty easy to cut. You can put it into the pot right from partially frozen. That's perfectly fine. The last thing we're gonna add in is some salt. I have 2 teaspoons of fine grind sea salt, or you can use kosher salt, that's fine. Actually, I'm looking at this as it goes in. It's not my fine grind sea salt. It is my Diamond Crystal kosher salt, which I absolutely love. Now, you don't want to go under pressure without stirring this because your chicken will pressure cook all in one clump. So we're going to go ahead and stir this all around, kind of break up the chicken a little bit. And now we're going to go under pressure. And I know you're like, wait a minute, you forgot the coconut milk. No, I didn't. We're going to add that in after the pressure cook time. The reason being is that I was having a lot of issues with it splitting and not being a real creamy coconut looking soup. And I found that if you add it in after the fact, it works better. And it doesn't take long to like simmer, to warm through. And there's a few other ingredients that I like to add in after pressure cooking anyway, so I simmer for a few minutes, and I'm gonna get to those in just a minute. All right, make sure your pressure cooker is set up for pressure cooking and the valve is in the sealed position. Turn it on. This model, I have to move the slider over. High pressure is what we want. We're gonna go under 2 minutes of pressure cooking and hit start. Now, I did not have this on sear saute, so I don't have anything warmed up. I mean, technically, if you have all your stuff prepped, you could put it on sear saute and let it start to heat up a little bit. That's going to decrease your time to pressure. However, it could also decrease the cook time on the chicken a little bit. So especially if your chicken is for a little bit frozen still, I would not use the sear saute before going under pressure. Let it build the steam from basically cold liquids, okay? It's gonna give it enough time to make sure that your chicken is fully cooked. Okay, so while that's coming to pressure, which is gonna take probably about 12 minutes or so, let me talk about the other ingredients, because after this is done, we're gonna add them in and do a little simmer. And I wanna kind of go over them a little bit because there's been some things that I've figured out along the way that might be of interest to you. First is the coconut milk. I have a box here of coconut milk. This is not to be mistaken for a carton of coconut milk that you get in the dairy section. This is actually in the dry goods aisle, maybe even the canned food aisle, probably around where the other coconut milk in the can is. I was having some issues with my canned coconut milk. Again, not producing that creamy consistency that I wanted in this soup. And even if I added more after pressure cooking, it still seemed to be splitting. So I did a little research, and it is recommended that you get the coconut milk in a carton when you can, okay? And I found when I used it, I loved it. Now, can you use the canned coconut milk? Absolutely. What you might notice if you're opening up a can is there might be some cream and then some like translucent kind of looking liquid. That's fine. That just means the cream separated from the coconut milk itself. You can stir that together. We're going to add it at the end. You need 1 can or 2 cups from the carton. We're also going to add in the zest and juice of 1 to 2 limes. How much you use is completely up to you. So I would add in 1 and then give it a taste. If it tastes really well balanced, then you're good to go. If you need a little bit more acid to cut the richness of the coconut milk, then add in another juiced lime. You want to add this after pressure cooking because even just the zest can get a little bitter under pressure in this recipe. So add it after the fact. It adds a nice freshness and it's absolutely delicious. The next thing I add that's not traditional in a Tom Kha Gai, I don't think anyway, are mini red peppers, okay? These are sweet, they are not hot, and I add them because I love the way that they look, but I don't add them in before pressure cooking because they will overcook and become soggy and very dull. So I add them after pressure cooking and just simmer until they're just a little bit softened. Sometimes I add them in raw to the soup as a little crunch. They're absolutely delicious. You could also use a red bell pepper if you wanted to do that. Carrots. This is definitely not traditional, but I go to a Thai restaurant and they beef up their Tom Kha Gai soup so much. They add zucchini, which is absolutely delicious. So feel free, grab some zucchini, chunk it up, add it in at the end, and just let it simmer for a few minutes until it's tender. It's so good. I mean, this is like a meal in itself. So now we've moved from just a very basic but delicious coconut chicken soup to a coconut chicken vegetable soup with all kinds of different vegetables. And you can add in whatever you like. In fact, I think this time I'm gonna add in a few handfuls of spinach because I have some in the refrigerator and I think it's gonna be delicious. So definitely add in what you want, what you have on hand. Broccoli would be another one that would be great. The carrots, I love the look and I love the texture. So what I do is I take 1 to 2 carrots and I cut them on the bias. I add them in after the pressure cook time and I simmer for just about 5 minutes. They're still slightly crunchy, but not totally raw. And I just absolutely love them. Another garnish that I will use from time to time if I have it is some Thai basil, or cilantro is another really good option. That adds another little brightness to the soup and I love it. But I happen to have this Thai basil and I need to use it up. So I'm gonna put that in at the end after these are simmered even and just break it up. Put it in right at the end. It's gonna be absolutely delicious. Once your 2 minutes of pressure cook time is up, you can do an immediate release of the steam by switching the valve to vent. That took about 2.5 minutes, and now I should be able to open up the lid. It's gonna be steamy. All right, give everything a stir around and break up the chicken a little bit here. See how it kind of clumps together even though we stirred it? So definitely don't leave it all in one big pile or it'll definitely clump together. And I know it does not look very pretty right now. It will. All right, add in your 2 cups or 15 ounces or so of coconut milk. This is when it starts to get real pretty. Give it a nice stir. Now I like to add in my carrots. And remember, all this is optional. And I switch over to sear saute on 3. So I go to sear saute, hit 3, and then just simmer this for just a few minutes. You can add in your red peppers if you're using those now. All right, let's get our lime zested and juiced while the vegetables are sort of simmering there. It smells so good. You can also make this in a pot on the stove just by, boiling it. It's perfectly fine. I like to pressure cook it just because it goes a little quicker. It adds in a little bit more flavor if you ask me. That's just my personal preference. So about a tablespoon or 2 of the lime juice. I mean, every lime is a little different in how much juice they're going to give off. That's why you can use 1 to 2. I mean, you could use 3 if you wanted it a little more limey. Usually 1 is good for me. With this batch of limes, they were pretty juicy. So that was about 2 tablespoons. Go ahead and stir that in. Now it's important that you taste for spice. So just take a little bit of the broth, put it in a bowl, give it a little taste. Oh my goodness. Wow. It's so warming. It's so fresh tasting. It's so delicious. Wow. It doesn't need anything. While the vegetables are simmering in there, you can, if you want, I mean, you don't have to, but you can go in and fish out that galanga and any of the lime leaves that you see. It's up to you if you leave the lemongrass in. I don't usually serve it with it in, but sometimes I'll leave it in so when I reheat it, it even infuses more. All right, so as written, this makes 10 cups of soup. You could increase to 1.5 of the recipe. If you wanted to make a bigger batch, you can absolutely cut it in half. You can just cut the ingredients in half and keep the pressure cook time the same. You could also put all of these in a little sachet if you wanted to, where you could just pull out the sachet. I've thought about doing that several times and I just never remember to do it. So I just throw them in like it is. I would probably throw in the lemongrass though whole and make a little sachet with the galangal and the kaffir lime leaves. All right, second to last ingredient is I'm gonna throw in some spinach. I don't usually do that. I usually use zucchini, but I don't have any today. I have spinach, so that's what I'm gonna use. Sounds good. And now turn the heat off. So just turn the pot right off. Break up some of your Thai basil, or another option would be green onions or chives. That would be fine too. Just like to kind of break these up just a little bit. Put a few in there. Or like I said before too, cilantro is a really good addition. So this is not your traditional Tom Kha Gai soup with these added vegetables, but let me tell you, it's hearty and delicious. All right, there we go. The coconut chicken vegetable soup. It looks absolutely amazing. I usually serve it with jasmine rice, but you could serve it with noodles too if you wanted to. That would be good. And if you have the 2-lid model of Ninja Foodie, you can stack the rice on top in a 6-inch Fat Daddy-O pan if you're just gonna make about a cup of it. Do 1 cup of rice, 1 cup of water, put the rack in the high position, put the rice on top covered, and instead go under the 2 minutes of pressure cook time, but instead of doing an immediate release, let it naturally release for 10 minutes, and then open up your lid, and you're gonna have perfectly cooked jasmine rice to go with your soup. Oh my gosh. This is my favorite. I think it's my favorite soup of all time. If you love Thai flavors, you are going to absolutely love this soup. The chicken is tender and thin. It has just the best texture, the best flavors. Oh my goodness, it's so good. It is very hot though. It's very hot. And how long was I simmering that? Probably less than 5 minutes. Perfect on the carrot. So delicious. Now, this soup does freeze well. You can also leave it in the container in the refrigerator, but I wanted to show you what happens so you don't freak out. It will separate. Don't worry about it. It reheats beautifully. That is just the coconut milk going to the top and everything else separating out. So it looks funny. It's perfectly fine. You leave it in the refrigerator for up to 3 days. For longer storage, make sure you freeze it. All right, go grab some ingredients, switch them up as you need to, and make some coconut chicken soup.